This episode of FineScale Modeler's new product rundown features Takom's M48, Arma's Airacobra, HK Model's smaller B-25, ICM's Gotha Glider, Magic Factory's Iron Dome, HobbyBoss's A10C, Revell's big Firebird, Eduard's F4F Wildcat and F6F Hellcat, and Revell's big Bf109 G and 767.
New product rundown brought to you by Hobby Zone USA, your source for hobby storage solutions, hard to find hobby tools, and aftermarket modeling needs.
Hi and welcome to FineScale Modeler's new product rundown, the twice monthly video where we get you inside the latest and greatest new kits. I'm Tim Kidwell.
I'm Aaron Skinner. It's the end of the year and we've got a ton to get through before 2023, so let's kick off this episode with Takom's new 1/35th scale M48 patent tank.
That's right, so the company started this line not with one, but two kits. An M48A3 Mod B, the variant widely used in Vietnam, and an M48A5, the final production variant armed with a 105mm main gun.
As you may expect, many of the parts in these kits are the same, so let's start by looking at the first in kit number order, the A5. The hull splits along the broadest point and casting texture is molded on all the appropriate areas. The suspension includes working torsion bars locked into central notches that run through slide molded mounts to the arms for the road wheels with separate outer rims and tires. Return rollers, final drive housings, and drive sprockets finish the running gear that is then wrapped with multi-part working individual link T142 tracks.
The engine deck features finely molded panel lines, hinges, and handles, as well as the louvered grills on the top and the rear doors. Fenders with toolboxes and exhausts finish the hull.
The turret shows the same fine casting texture as the hull. It has separate hatches, an optional armament for the commander's and gunner's positions, and finely molded grab handles and turret bustle basket. A photo-etched metal fret supplies mesh for the basket. The main gun, molded as a single part, including the recoil dust cover, fits into a multi-part mantlet cover. Clear parts provide periscopes and lights, as well as the searchlight lens and commander's cupola for the A3 kit.
Decals and color diagrams in the A5 kit provide 4 marking options. A 72nd Armor tank in South Korea in 1984, a California National Guard vehicle in 1986, a North Carolina National Guard A5 on exercise in Italy in 1986, and a Lebanese Army tank from 2005.
Changes in the M48A3 kit include different track links for the T97E2 style chevron treads, the 90mm main gun with separate muzzle brake, commander's cupola with internal machine gun mount, early exhausts, and the coaxial searchlight mounted above the main gun.
The decals and color diagrams here also supply markings for 4 tanks. A 77th Armor A3 involved in Operation Utah Mesa in June 1969, an 11th Armored Cavalry tank at Quan Loi in October 1969, an Army of the Republic of Vietnam vehicle from April 1972, and a Marine Corps tank in 1980.
For anyone interested in dressing up other M48s and M60s, Takom offers the tracks as aftermarket options.
So the M48 is a popular subject and these kits look really good. It's a good bet that Armor fans are going to like building them.
Now here's a kit that I'm sure a lot of small-scale aircraft builders have been looking forward to. It's Arma Hobby's 1/72nd scale P-39 Airacobra.
This initial kit represents the last major production variant of the Airacobra, the P-39Q.
Typical of Arma's Mustangs and Wildcats, the surface detail is as good as it gets with crisp lines and rivets. The lower half of the wing is a single part with good dihedral, and the outlines of the ailerons are well marked. The elevators and rudder are separate. An unused upper nose insert points to other variants on the way, as do the unused props and exhausts. A nice touch is the inclusion of separate parts for the engine outflow ramps on the belly.
Cockpit detail includes the floor, controls, frame, footwell, and seat. The car-style doors, as well as the canopy, gun sight, and a light are supplied in clear plastic. Masks are included. The landing gear legs are sharp, and the gear doors have detail molded inside. 3 steel ball bearings are included to help keep the nose wheel down. Bombs and external drop tank and underwing gun pods can be fitted.
Decals and color diagrams provide 5 marking options. A 363rd Fighter Squadron plane flown by Bud Anderson, a coral sand and sky blue aircraft from the 6th Fighter Squadron in the Gilbert Islands, an Italian co-belligerent Air Force fighter in November 1944, one from the 82nd Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron in New Guinea in 1944, and a Polish fighter from the 2nd Mixed Special Air Regiment in Warsaw in 1945.
Arma is without question producing some of the finest 1/72nd scale model aircraft kits out there, and this is just another example of their fine craftsmanship.
HK Models has released a 1/48 scale kit of the B-25J Mitchell, the subject of the company's first 1/32nd scale kit.
You can see our workbench review of that kit at a link in the description below.
As we've seen on other HK kits, surface detail combines crisp, recessed panel lines and very fine rivets. Inside the fuselage are molded frames. The wings and nacelles show the same attention to detail, and there is good separation at the ailerons. The flaps are posable, and the elevators and rudders are designed to be left movable.
There's plenty of detail inside with the cockpit floor, seats, rear frame, controls, and instrument panel. The bombardier's position in the nose, which can be fitted with up to 4 fixed machine guns as a strafer, the support for the dorsal turret, and the tail gunner's station. Amidships is the well-appointed bomb bay that can be fitted with 6 bombs. Very clear plastic supplies glazing for the cockpit, nose, dorsal turret, waist guns, and tail, as well as lenses for the landing and position lights.
Fitting inside one-piece cowls, the engines have 2 cylinder banks and separate reduction gear housings. That all mounts on a firewall, and the cowl flaps are molded open. Good-looking landing gear legs and wheels ground the plane, and a metal weight will keep the nose down. Photo etch metal supplies seat belts, wing fences, bomb bay detail, and optional parts for the plastic armor plating on the cockpit.
Cartograph decals and color diagrams give markings for 2 Mitchells. A strafer named Cactus Kitten from the 501st Bomber Squadron at Lady in January 1945. And She's Engaged, a natural metal bomber from the 380th Bomber Squadron in Naples in spring 1945.
So this is a good-looking kit in the box, and it will produce a really nice-looking replica of the late model B-25J, a really versatile airplane.
Or diorama. Sticking with the 1/48 scale theme, here's ICM's Gotha Go 242A.
This landing glider could carry up to 21 troops or 2.5 tons of cargo, and was used to move men and material in the Mediterranean and Eastern fronts.
The body parts, including the belly, roof, and sides, have a good representation of the glider's fabric covering. The hinged rear body hatch is separate and posable. The long wings, which were made largely from wood, have a few raised and recessed details, including fine leading edge fences. The ailerons and flaps, as well as the rudders and elevators on the twin booms, are separate.
Wrapped inside the fuselage, the interior comprises extensive framing, all finely molded, with a frame and spar for the wings, and the floor. The cockpit has 2 seats and controls, and the cargo area gets 20 seats that mount to racks along the sides. Landing skids and wheels round out the basic plane, and optional defensive machine guns can be fitted. Clear plastic provides the extensive cockpit glazing and the side and rear windows.
Decals and diagrams show 4 marking options. The box art Go 242 with the striking mouth and eyes in the Mediterranean in 1942, 2 in similar camouflage on the Eastern Front, and this one in an interesting scheme that appears to show the standard Luftwaffe camouflage overpainted with a disruptive pattern of brown.
This beautifully molded and detailed kit should produce a very large model of this German glider.
New manufacturer Magic Factory brings us our next kit, a 1/35th scale Iron Dome air defense system.
Developed by Israel, Iron Dome is designed to intercept short-range artillery and missiles.
The launcher platform has molded diamond tread, side rails, control units, optional power supplies for Israeli and American weapons, and posable stabilizers.
The launcher's frame is well molded and can be posed for transport or in firing position upright on 4 hydraulic pistons. The missile tubes build in 4 racks of 5 with separate sides and ends. Optional parts allow the antenna to be posed extended or stowed.
Photo-etched metal parts supply generator frames, missile tube details, placards, and blast screens. And there are metal tubes for the pistons on the launcher and stabilizers, and wire for the antenna.
Decals and color diagrams show options for an Israeli and American launcher. Most of the decals are warning placards and labels. And the labels for the missile tubes are given as film-free water slide decals, similar to the kind Eduard has used in some recent kits.
So this is a unique model for sure. Aaron wants me to tell you that it'll look good in a diorama, and I don't disagree with him. And I don't hate dioramas. Just stop pushing it on people. It would look good in the diorama, though.
It really would.
So if somebody out there wants to turn it, put it into one, that'd be great. We'd love to see it.
Either
Reader gallery,
Yep.
you could write a feature about how you use it in a diorama.
Yep. Put it on the ground or
Submit
in
it.
the launch position or on a truck being transported. It would look great that way.
It would. It would.
Let's look at a kit from HobbyBoss next, a 148 scale A10C.
Parts of this kit stem from the company's initial 148 scale Thunderbolt 2 released in 2007.
Surface detail is a mix of fine recessed panel lines and rivets. The rudders and elevators are fixed in place, but the flaps and ailerons are separate but don't appear posable without alteration.
The cockpit consists of a tub with molded side consoles, ejection seat, controls, instrument panel, and turtle deck. Up front, adjacent to the nose gear bay, sits a 30mm Avenger rotary cannon.
The prominent engines have one-piece intakes with molded fan blades, cowls, and internal bodies that should produce realistic power plants. The wheels get wrapped with rubber tires. The windshield and canopy are separate. Other clear parts include the HUD glass, seeker heads for the Mavericks and GBU-8s, the head of the lantern pod, and position and landing lights.
To load up your Warthog, the kit supplies 6 AGM-65 Mavericks, 2 AIM-9L Sidewinders, 12 CBU-100 cluster bombs, 12 Mark 82 bombs, 2 GBU-10s, 2 GBU-8s, a centerline fuel tank, AN ALQ-131 ECM pod, AN LQ-119 jamming pod, and AN AAQ-14 and AN AAQ-33 targeting pods.
Decals and color diagrams show 4 marking options. A rather plain aircraft from the 53rd Wing, a Michigan Air National Guard plane in colorful retro markings with D-Day stripes to celebrate the 107th Fighter Squadron's 100th anniversary. One from the 122nd Fighter Wing in a special scheme to mark the 100th anniversary of the Indiana Air National Guard, and an A-10 painted in a 1930 scheme to celebrate the Maryland Air National Guard's 100th anniversary.
If you plan to build a Warthog, this kit is a good option for you. Why? It's got a lot of colorful markings.
Going large, here's Revell's 1/16 scale 1987 Pontiac Firebird GTA.
This kit originated in 1983 and appears it hasn't been in circulation since 1993.
The body is largely a single part with separate doors, hood, front clip, rear bumper, and body kit.
Under the hood, the 350 cubic inch V8 features block halves, heads, intake and fuel injection systems, exhausts, and more. Underneath, there is the front suspension, rear axle and springs that attach to wheels, and vinyl tires.
Inside, the tub with rear seats molded in gets front buckets, center console, dash, and controls. Clear parts supply the windshield, rear window, T-top inserts, head, and tail lights.
New here are the decals with dials for the instrument cluster, badges, vents, and a personalized Illinois plate.
Because it's been nearly 30 years since this kit's been in circulation, it's great to see it back, and I bet a lot of modelers will use it as a basis for like a super detailing project.
Or a garage diorama. Bill Reed.
That would work well too.
Eduard's initial 148 scale Wildcat was really well received, and so here they are again with the new F4F-4.
We looked at the parts in the F4F-3 in a previous MPRD, and Andy Keys built one for review. You can find those in the links in the description.
New in this version is the wing, with 6 machine guns and engraving for the wing fold. No provision is given to fold the wing in this kit. A new fret of photo-etched metal supplies an instrument panel.
Decals provide markings for 6 fighters, one based on USS Enterprise in 1942, one wearing the early unmodified national insignia, another flown by future ace Thomas Rhodes, a Wildcat on Guadalcanal in 1942, an Operation Torch aircraft, and one assigned to a training unit in 1944.
While we are looking at Eduard Grumman fighters, a kit making a return to the catalog is the 1/72nd scale F6F-5N, the Nightfighter version of the Hellcat. You can see Paul Boyer's review of the F6F-3 at the link in the description below.
In addition to the well-molded wings and fuselage, the parts include the radar housing for the starboard wing.
Decals give markings for 4 Hellcats, all in overall sea blue gloss, including one in Royal Navy service.
These are good-looking kits, and it's great to see them on the market. It's good to see this one back after a few years, and it's good to see that Eduard continues to create more Wildcats. Good job.
Finally, from Revell Germany, we have these 2 kits. Now, in this one, we have new decals and parts, and in this one, new decals. So let's start with the Bf109 G2/4.
This is an updated version of the big Messerschmitt released by Revell in 2013. You can read Jim Zeski's workbench review at the link in the description.
New here are the wheels, parts for upper front fuselage, armament, and inner upper wings for the G2.
Decals give 2 marking options, a G2 from JG54 on the Eastern Front in August 1942, and a G4 from JG52, also on the Eastern Front in August 1942.
At the other end of the spectrum, in terms of scale and subject, is the 1/144th scale Boeing 767-300ER.
This kit dates to 1991 and, typical of Revell airliners, features recessed panel lines and open cabin windows. New for this version are beautifully printed decals for British Airways Chelsea Rose livery that should look stunning on the finished model.
Very sharp. I think that's the last kit for not only this show, but the year.
Yeah, I know. It's been a big show, big year.
Yes.
Keep an eye on FineScale.com for reviews of the M48A3 Airacobra, B-25, Gotha, and Iron Dome.
And make sure while you're visiting FineScale.com, check out all of the show galleries that we've done this year, the reader galleries, and definitely go ahead and hit up those reviews. There are more than 2,000 of them on the website now.
Lots of good stuff to look at. And don't forget to stop by CombackHobbyStore.com where you can pick up all kinds of tools and paints and gifts and books, including these Schiffer titles. We've got more coming on the site in the next couple weeks.
I'm Tim Kidwell.
I'm Aaron Skinner. We'll see you next time, next year.
Next year.
Next year.
Happy New Year! Fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. Have a good one, everyone. She's recording this.
Try saying turret bustle basket fast.
I've got a turret bustle basket. As Aaron would say, somebody's gonna wanna make this into a diorama.
I didn't say that.
He's thinking it. He'd put anything in a diorama. I have fingernail clippings. Diorama. By the way, people are gonna start thinking that I don't like dioramas, and I like dioramas just fine. I just don't like pushing it on people.
I'm not pushing
it. Went from gymnastics to frickin' Mortal Kombat.
Wouldn't that make gymnastics even more exciting?
I think to make baseball more exciting, you should be able to carry the bat with you while you run the bases.
And defend yourself.
And when they try to tag you, you just crack people.
Let's look at a kit. Let's look at a kit.
Just look at it.
Avenger rotary cannon.
How can you not yeah, right? You gotta growl at that. Thanks for watching. It's been a long year.
Thanks for putting up with us.